All right, by now you should know what an SDIRA is and how you can transact within these accounts. If you have no clue what I'm talking about, we did the first 2 videos of this series on those 2 very topics. So I suggest you take a look at those, but I'll put the links to those in the description below. But as far as this video goes, this is just going to be practical step-by-step instructions on how do I set up these accounts and how do I get into these accounts from, say, if I have an existing account. So how do you transfer those? So really getting into this, we're going to go a little bit on the whiteboard, then we're going to hop into the computer step by step, click by click, what I did to get into my account. So you have a point of reference. Yours is going to be maybe a little bit different, but it'll give you an idea of what you need to do. So with that, we're going to go over easy transfer versus restrictive transfer. And what I mean by that, so everyone's going to fit into one of 2 categories. Either you're going to be self-employed, or you're going to be employed by someone else. Now, obviously not employed, that'll fit under here as well. But as far as these go, self-employed, that's going to be the less restrictive. So if you have an account and you're self-employed, you manage that account. So for example, maybe a solo 401k, or maybe you just have your own traditional IRA, Roth IRA, it's set up in a brokerage account that you have control over. Maybe it's just, again, Fidelity, Vanguard, that's fine. But it's your account, you have full control over it. That's going to be no restrictions. You can bring that over to a directed IRA account at any point in time. Now, what else will fall under this is going to be, say, you had a previous employer that you had an account with them, but you're no longer working with them. Now that counts just on the sidelines, or maybe you rolled it over into one of yours. That counts here as well. So old employer account, we'll just leave it at that. Old employer account. Now W-2. So this is going to be more restrictive. Now keep in mind, some people will say, hey, if you're at a W-2, there's no way they're going to let you get funds out of that account to go to a directed IRA account. That's completely bogus. I know it because I've done it. Again, this is how I got into the space, was when I was working my W-2. But with that said, there are some W-2s where they may not allow it, and we'll get into that. So for a W-2, this is going to be the more restrictive route. And this is going to have, say, this is going to be an employee or an employer plan. Employer plan. Now this is going to have your typically a 401k or a Roth 401k. Some employers are getting into that a little more towards that route. But again, the main thing with these is it's going to be dependent on, for you getting into a directed IRA type account, it's going to be dependent on what your employer plan looks like. Now, when I was saying some employers allow this, some don't. Now, to give you a point of reference, the IRS did this survey. This was a few years back, but they found that out of all the employers nationwide, 62% allow you to take early withdrawals from those accounts. So we'll get into exactly what that looks like from the workaround perspective to get into a directed account. So with that, let's erase this real quick. So again, that 62%, that's why if you have an employer plan tell you no, you should not get discouraged on that. And I'll explain that here in a bit. So we got the W-2 here and workaround. I'm just going to go through an example of the workaround I did. But the main thing you need to know is it's going to be called an in-service withdrawal. Now, this could also be called, most commonly it's going to be called an in-service withdrawal, but it could be called in-service distribution, in-service rollover. Again, depending on who you talk to at these account holder institutions, they may have varying knowledge, but we'll get into especially how you have to kind of key in on the appropriate vocabulary so you don't kind of push a taxable event. We'll get into that a little bit, but again, so W-2 in-service withdrawal is what you're looking for. So what you're going to do And this is what I did in my case, so you have an example. So at my old employer, my retirement account was with Fidelity. And for some reason, I am forgetting the spelling here. So Fidelity is probably wrong spelling, but hey, that's okay. But with them, I had a 401k. Yeah, and this was with my old employer. Now, what I did at first is I contacted my employer's plan. So I contacted Fidelity, had like a special contact line specifically for that company. So I reached out to them, and they had the employer plan docs. So that's one thing you're going to want to take a look at, your employer plan docs for the retirement account. So put plan documents. And keep in mind, when I reached out at first, the person said, no, we can't do that here. I had to call like 5 times before I finally got to somebody, because I had, at that point, I think the second round, I had got the employer plan docs, and I realized that, hey, this is possible. I'm just not getting the right person. So after the 5th time, finally I got to someone, and they said, oh yes, we do that. This is how you can accomplish this. So what they told me, and your employer might be a little bit different, but this is what I've found was the way. So with my account, I had pre-tax that was going in out of each paycheck. But what I did is so the employer had a match program. So I just contributed pre-tax up to that match. Well, this other side, the workaround, so over here we've got the match. But for this in-service withdrawal, I asked them, okay, what needs to be done there? They said, well, you have to contribute post-tax money, so after-tax dollars. So this is an important point. After-tax. After-tax contribution. And in the case of my account, they would allow you to contribute an additional 10%, I believe. So 10% of each paycheck. Again, it didn't have to be that, but you could only contribute up to that. So when I was getting paid every 2 weeks, I would do the match, and then I would contribute an additional after-tax funds to that account. And from that point, what I did is I waited maybe 6 months. And once I got used to this, I was doing it every 6 to 12 months, maybe once, twice a year if it was building up enough. But we keep contributing those after-tax funds until it was something semi-substantial, I guess you could say. And then I would do an in-service rollover or in-service withdrawal, and I would roll that over into a Roth because it's after-tax money, so it's going to go into a Roth account. Well, when I did this rollover, this Roth account was another one that I had set up individually outside of my company or outside of the company I worked for with Fidelity. My thought was, hey, just make it easy, make the account with the same custodian. That way they don't throw up arms that you're taking money away from their company. So just in my mind, it seemed like it was easier. Really, you could do this directly to a self-directed account. We'll get into what those rollover options are, but I'm just giving you an example of how I did it. So the important thing here, again, one, you want to make sure in-service withdrawals are allowed within the account. And then second, do they allow after-tax contributions? Because the after-tax is what you're going to be able to take out most commonly. And anything that is contributed by your employer, the ones that allow you to do this in-service withdrawal, they're definitely not going to let you take that out. So until you leave the company. So there's the workaround there. Again, in-service withdrawal and contributing after tax, and then roll it out to a Roth. Now with that Roth, from that Roth, that was cash in that account. I didn't invest it in any stocks, bonds, or mutual funds. I just did that and rolled it over into my directed account where I could actually direct those funds appropriately. So that is the workaround. And then lastly, before we actually go through this on the computer real quick, we're going to go over rollover options. So when you are rolling over, What are your options? You're going to have three. So first one's going to be called a trustee to trustee transfer. Erase that real quick. Trustee to trustee. Now what that means is, like, for instance, the example that I just gave you where I had it in a Roth account at that same custodian at Fidelity. That was my personal account. So when my personal account, say it's a Roth in this example, and it's held at Fidelity, put Fidelity, F for Fidelity, I'm going to transfer that to directed IRA, in my case. And, oh, sorry, erase that. It's going to be a Roth, same thing. So it's trustee to trustee in kind. And this is going to be D for directed. So Roth, it's just trustee. So essentially Fidelity is a trustee as well as directed IRA. It's just a trustee transfer from custodian to custodian. Again, these are accounts that are outside of the employer. Again, this does not cause a taxable event, so no taxable event. All of these options that I'm going to be showing you, they do not cause a taxable event because they're going to be going to the same type of account. Now, the second one is going to be very similar, but it's called a direct rollover. Now, in this case, say it's your 401k at your work. And for example purposes, we're going to say this is at Fidelity again. And we're going to directly roll it over into an IRA at directed. And again, the main difference here is just it's coming out of an employer plan account. So it's going to be a 401k to an IRA, but really these are two very similar. They do have different names. This is just so you know the difference on if someone tells you it. And number three is going to be a 60-day rollover. Now, whereas these two up here, this is essentially, it's just transfer from institution to institution. What this one is they're going to actually cut you a check. It's going to be in the name of your IRA, and you have 60 days to redeposit those funds into your new account. Not ideal, because if you don't do it within those 60 days, there are early withdrawal penalties, and you're going to have some issues there. So really, my opinion is you definitely want to go number one or number two on this. You want to go on these first two routes. Third one, it's not ideal. I don't necessarily suggest it. Can be done, but really these are the two best options in my opinion. But again, reminder here, these are non-taxable events. This one, there's going to be no reporting to the IRS for a trustee to trustee transfer. This one, they're going to file something, it's called a 1099-R. So that will be filed, but again, it's not a taxable event. I think it's the same thing for the 60-day rollover as well. So just keep that in mind. They will be, IRS will be notified if on these two separate instances. Not a big deal, just something for awareness. So non-taxable events. That is your methods of transferring over. And now that you know that, we are going to head on over to the computer and show you click by click on how you set these accounts up.
Okay, now we're going to go through the simple steps of setting up your account. Super straightforward, but we'll walk through this. The first step is, one, you're going to want to find a custodian or an account that will allow you to self-direct. So in this case, I've got I've got directed IRA. They're who I use, but again, do your research, see who you like best. I've been using them for the last 5 years, so I'm okay with promoting them. They're a good company in my opinion. So I do have a discount on here. If you would like to use them, you can get a discount through me. Feel free to use that or not. Either way, totally fine. But from here on this main page, you're just going to go open account. You can set up traditional IRA, whichever one you're transferring to. Like if you're doing post-tax money, then it's going to be a Roth. If you're doing pre-tax money, it's going to be an IRA type account. Once you have your account set up, again, you can do that from the main page on here or whichever custodian that you use. But once you have that set up, you're going to go and fund the account. So with Direct IRA, they have this nice little form section here. Go fund an account. And then they're going to have the options here. So what I was mentioning previously, where you have the trustee to trustee transfer, again, that's your personal account to a personal account. Then they have the employer plan. So if you're doing a direct rollover from your employer plan, that's what that looks like. So what I did on my end was it was a cash transfer. As we mentioned, I was in a personal Roth at that point. And really, you can do in kind. So you can go, say you have stocks, or say if you're even coming from another direct account and you have real estate in that account, you can do an in kind transfer where those assets stay the same and then they're transferred over into your new custodian. Just know there's going to be extra fees in regards to that. When you're looking at extra fees, at least with directed, you're going to go up here to forms and see fee schedules. So you can take a look at that. But really what I found is super clean is the way I did it, where it's just a cash transfer. I know that's not the case in every situation, but cash transfer, if you can do it, it is much cleaner and much more simple. So with that, let's go over to what this actually looks like. So when you go to transfer these, so this is what the form is going to populate as, and you just put in, obviously, your standard information, your name, middle, date of birth, so on and so forth. Account transfer, so this is going to be the custodian that you are coming from. So in my case, it was from Fidelity. This was the information that they provided me. You're going to want to call your custodian up. Just make sure to say, hey, I'm going to transfer my funds from this account to another brokerage account. You don't have to say it's directed. Just say it's to another brokerage account. That'll be sufficient. And say, what information do I need for the account transfer? What's your address? So on and so forth. So this is what I found for Fidelity. Then you're going to select what type of account that you are transferring. And then from there, it's either a full liquidation or a partial. So you can just transfer out a portion of that account if you'd like, or you can do the whole thing. It's up to you. Then here they'll indicate, do you want it sent via regular mail or overnight as a check, or do you want it an incoming wire? I would always do incoming wire. It's the fastest. You get your account up running much quicker. And this is another thing. So transfer request submission. This is when you contact that custodian, your old one, Fidelity for me. Ask them, what do you need? Like, how is a transfer request submitted to you all? What's the best form? So for Fidelity, they're back in the archaic times. It is, you need to fax it in. This was their fax number, and then it said they wanted me to put attention TOA. So I did that per their request, what they needed. And then you're going to sign it. They're going to need your signature. It's going to need to be an actual signature. So don't sign it on your computer and send it in. It'll cause you delays. Just print it out, sign it by hand, and then scan it in and send it to your custodian. Now, this medallion, so this medallion stamp here, there are going to be some institutions where they will require this. Fidelity did not at the time that I did it. Again, you're going to have to contact them and see which route they'd like to take. But outside of that, that's the end of the form. It's super straightforward. It's super simple. Again, this form is going to be for the custodian that you're going to. In this case, it was directed IRA for me. This form, I filled it out, submitted it back to them, and then they contacted Fidelity to get that transfer request taken care of. So super simple. But yeah, you do that and then you're off to the races. One thing, as far as this account number, I did forget here. I did mention I got this document up. So to find your account statement number, just go to your monthly statement. It's going to be typically on the top right. If you're a Fidelity, this is where mine was at. Again, super straightforward, super simple. Now, once that is finished, those funds are going to take some time. Mine didn't take more than a week to get into my account. But after that, once your account's funded, you're off to the races unless you have a separate structure, which we're going to talk about what I have. So I've got an IRA LLC structure set up, and I'll tell you exactly what that setup looks like and how I transact within that account. But if you want to transact just straight from your directed IRA account, that's totally fine. What you're going to do is you're going to go in here and say invest an account. So you're actually going to invest with your account. And all of this is going to be a direction of investment form. So it's no matter what custodian you're going to be at, it's likely going to be very similar to where you just fill out a direction of investment for your account, and that's going to tell them what you would like to invest in. So say it's a real estate purchase. You can do that directly from the account. It may take a few days for it to actually fund, which is fine. I mean, mine, the reason why I'm in an IRA LLC is I can transact very quickly. So that's what I like about it. But if you're only doing 1 or 2 deals a year, it's totally fine to just keep it within your custodian. It's not going to be that crazy of a deal for you. But yeah, what I like about Directed is they have all of these forms kind of divvied up on the individual type of assets that you have. So it's seamless, it's straightforward. Another thing I like about these guys is the client support. You can call and get an actual live person. So it's really nice. Again, I like using them, but do your research. But yeah, there you are. It's that simple. Now it's time to enjoy your newfound freedom with your retirement account. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you liked it, please like and subscribe to this channel. We've got more content like this coming your way. And as always, if you want to reach out to me, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. All right, catch you later. Catch you on the next one.